May 19th, 1536. The Tower of London. Anne Boleyn is led to the scaffold, Queen of England, the king's wife, the woman for whom he broke with Rome. In 1 hour she will be gone, but already today, inside these same walls, another woman is trying on her dresses. Jane Seymour. She does not cry. She waits. 11 days after Anne's execution, she will become the new Queen of England. Her motto, ready to obey and serve. They called her quiet, convenient, harmless, but she will do what no previous wife of Henry VIII ever did, and die 12 days after that. Coincidence or payment? This is the story of a woman who never raised her voice, and because of that, got everything. 1536, Greenwich Palace. Henry holds out a purse of gold to Jane Seymour. A gift, a signal, something others took without questions. Jane does not take it. "Your Majesty, I cannot accept this." "Why?" Henry is surprised. "Because I have no honor greater than serving your wife." A pause. She did not say no to the king. She reminded him that the king still had a wife. Henry looks at her for a long moment. Then he takes the purse back and leaves. But the next day, he returns. Who is this woman? And why does she behave as if she knows something the king himself does not? Jane Seymour did not appear at court as a star or as a threat. Unlike Anne Boleyn, she was not discussed, not argued over. Her name was not whispered in corners. She seemed to dissolve into space, present but never demanding attention. A family without great titles, a girl without a brilliant education. She did not speak several languages, did not write poetry, did not argue theology, but she had one talent. She knew how to be unnoticeable. At a court where every word could cost a head, that was a weapon. When she became lady-in-waiting first to Catherine of Aragon and later to Anne Boleyn, she behaved predictably. She listened, she watched, she waited. She did not become anyone's ally. She served two queens. She saw one humiliated, the other prepared for death, and she learned the lesson. Henry did not notice her at once. He was absorbed by Anne. But the years passed. No son was born, and Anne began to remind him of the price he had paid. And at the right moment, Jane was there. She listened to the king as if his words mattered, and when Henry began to show interest, she behaved unlike all before her. She kept distance, calmly, almost cold. From the outside, it looked like modesty, like obedience, like a woman who knew her place. But was it that simple? Jane seemed to know exactly when to say no, and when silence would speak louder than words. While other women tried to attract attention, Jane did the opposite, and that pulled the king closer and closer. But how did she know this would work? By 1536, Henry VIII was no longer the man he had been at the start of his reign. The young king, who once dreamed of knighthood and romantic love, was gone. In his place, a ruler used to getting what he wanted and destroying whatever stood in the way. By then, he had executed Thomas More, his friend, his advisor, Bishop Fisher, 70 years old, dozens of monks who refused to recognize him as head of the church. He broke with Rome, destroyed monasteries, declared himself the supreme head of the Church of England. All of it for Anne Boleyn, and still no son. Anne stopped being his muse. She became a reminder of hopes that never came true. Anne grew jealous. Anne demanded. Anne reminded him what he had destroyed for her: the old order, peace with Europe, the favor of the Catholic world. And the more she insisted, the further Henry pulled away. Winter, 1536. Whitehall Palace. Henry enters Anne's chambers. She is waiting by the window, tense, hands clenched. "I hear you spoke with her again." "With whom?" Henry pretends not to understand. "With Jane Seymour." A pause. "She is my lady-in-waiting. "Of course I speak with her." Anne steps toward him. "Have you forgotten who I am? I am the Queen of England. You broke with Rome for me." "For you?" Henry looks at her cold. "Or for the son you never gave me?" Anne goes pale. "I gave you a daughter. Elizabeth." "That is worse than nothing." He turns, leaves the room. Anne remains by the window, alone, barely standing. This is the end. She understands. He has already made his choice. But why? Did she not give him everything? Love? Passion? Fire? But the king was tired of fire. Jane was like a breath of fresh air in the middle of a forest blaze. Anne saw how he looked at Jane. For the first time in 3 years, the same way he once looked at her, Jane saw it too, and said nothing. Beside Jane, Henry again felt like the unquestioned center of the world. She did not remind him of his mistakes, did not argue, did not demand explanations. Had Henry already decided to kill Anne? Or had he not yet? Jane did not push him away, but she did not give in. For the first time in years, someone made him struggle, and the more control he felt around her, the more he lost it in his own life. Slowly, the king began to do what he had done before: search for excuses, for reasons why one woman must disappear and another take her place. This time, he was certain he had found the perfect choice. 3 months later, Anne would be arrested, and that same day, Jane would be on the royal barge, with music, with laughter. The fall of Anne Boleyn was fast, but not sudden. At court, it had been prepared for a long time. Too many were tired of her influence, of her sharpness, of her emotion. Jane behaved as she always did. No sudden moves, no disappearance, no retreat into shadow. On the contrary, she appeared beside Henry more often, calm, confident, without triumph. Anne was arrested on May 2nd, 1536, accused of treason, incest, conspiracy. The charges were monstrous and unbelievable. Jane did not protest, did not show pity. At court, silence was sometimes safer than any word. While Anne Boleyn was held in the Tower, Jane already wore the king's gifts. While Anne was tried, Jane appeared with Henry at receptions. Everyone saw it. No one doubted. The next queen had already been chosen. Anne Boleyn was Jane's third cousin. Everyone knew, and still Jane became a living reminder that Anne's place was already taken, even before the verdict. Did Jane know the date of the execution in advance? Historians still argue. The trial lasted 1 day. The jury already knew what verdict was expected. Anne was accused of adultery with 5 men, including her own brother. There was no evidence, but the king did not need proof. Anne did not know the sentence had been signed a week before the trial. One of the accused, a musician who once looked at Anne for too long. That was enough for a death sentence. When asked if she confessed, Anne answered calmly, "I am not guilty, but I am ready to die." The verdict was announced an hour later: death by burning or beheading, by the king's mercy. Henry chose the sword, French. It was considered more noble, but Anne knew the truth. He simply wanted it to end faster. 17 days between arrest and execution. For the king, too long. For Anne, too short. On her last night, she did not sleep. Servants heard her repeat one sentence: "Tomorrow I will be gone, and no one will remember why I died." She was wrong. Her name was remembered forever, just not the way she wanted. May 19th, 1536, 8 in the morning. Anne Boleyn is led to the scaffold. She wears a gray dress, her hair hidden under a cap. Her hands tremble. Her voice does not. The executioner asks for forgiveness. She answers, willingly. Her last words: "I pray for the king. He was good to me. I accuse no one of my death." The French sword falls in a second. England freezes, and Jane Seymour, at that same moment, is 20 miles away, on the River Thames. Henry arranged a royal outing for her. Music, wine, laughter. The execution was in the morning. The engagement that same evening. 11 days later, on May 30th, 1536, they marry. No mourning, no pause, no explanations. 11 days. The soil on the grave still loose, and ambassadors already carry portraits of the new bride. Other kings mourned for months. Henry grew tired of waiting by the second week. The court saw obedience as weakness. The court was wrong. This was control, cold, precise, perfect. She did not push Anne to her death, but she did not take a single step to stop it. And Henry was certain. This time, he had chosen correctly. The woman beside him would no longer cause conflict. She would be the ideal queen. But that very perfection would soon lead to what changed everything. For her, and for the king. Jane became queen. But she had only one task. One. Fail it, and repeat Anne's fate. Once, she asked Henry to soften the sentence of an earl accused of treason. He agreed. Another time, she asked him to recall a monk exiled for refusing to name the king head of the church. He refused, but he did not punish her for asking. Jane learned the boundaries. She asked rarely. And because of that, the king listened. Henry began to say that Jane was his true wife. But Jane understood. Her position rested on a single condition. She had to give him a son. Everything at court now revolved around this. No politics, no brilliance, no sharp mind. They wanted an heir. The pregnancy was announced in January 1537. Henry ordered, "Close all brothels in London. Ban loud music in the palace. Pray for the Queen in every church in England." He feared a repeat of Anne. The court began to prepare. The birthing chamber was lined with velvet, the windows covered with heavy curtains. Light, they believed, was dangerous for a woman in labor. Servants stood watch day and night. Priests prayed in the royal chapel every hour. But more than anything, Henry feared what happened to Anne. Anne gave him a daughter and lost everything. If Jane gave him a daughter, he did not know what he would do. Courtiers noticed. The king spent more time in the chapel than in his wife's rooms. He did not ask God for mercy. He demanded a son. Behind his back they whispered, "What will he do to the third wife if it is another daughter?" In those months, Jane was almost perfect. Quiet, obedient, focused on the child. She became a symbol of hope for the Tudor line. It seemed everything was finally going right. October 12, 1537. Labor began. 3 days of contractions. The doctors exchanged glances. Henry did not leave the chapel. The court whispered, "If it is another daughter." If she had known how this would end, would she have agreed? On the third day, a servant ran into the hall shouting, "Your Majesty, a son!" For the first time in months, Henry cried. Edward was born. Henry received what he had been willing to destroy marriages, churches, and lives to obtain. The king was ecstatic. He ordered celebrations. Bells rang everywhere. He did not hide it. This was the greatest day of his life. Jane had fulfilled her purpose. But after the triumph came silence. The queen grew weaker each day. The doctors spoke carefully, vaguely, no clear answers. At court they began to whisper, "Something is wrong." Henry refused to believe it. He was certain fate could not be so cruel after such a gift. But now it became clear. Jane Seymour's path, built on obedience and patience, had reached its most dangerous point. Fever, pain. The doctors said nothing, but their silence said enough. Childbed fever. At court, everyone knew what that meant. Henry forbade the doctors to say the word death, as if refusing to name it could stop it. He spent more and more time by her side, canceled receptions, postponed affairs of state, snapped at anyone who tried to distract him. For the first time in many years, the king looked truly helpless. He had received the son he had waited for all his life, and suddenly realized he might lose the woman who made that son possible. Jane died slowly. She did not ask for protection, did not speak of fear. Until the end, she remained who she had always been: quiet, restrained, submissive. In her last days, she spoke very little. Henry sat by her bed for hours. He held her hand and, for the first time, did not know what to do. Usually, he commanded, and the world obeyed. But death did not. Once, Jane opened her eyes and looked at him. "You got your son," she whispered. "Yes, because of you. Then, I have fulfilled my purpose." She closed her eyes and never opened them again. When the doctors announced her death, Henry simply stood up and walked out of the room in silence. October 24th, 1537. 12 days after Edward's birth, Jane Seymour was dead. She was 28. After Jane's death, Henry did not marry for 2 years. For him, an eternity. For a man who had changed 2 wives in 10 years, it was a confession of love. His next wife, Anne of Cleves, lasted 6 months. Later, he would order to be buried beside Jane. The only one of all his wives granted that honor. She received everything and died 12 days later. Coincidence? Jane received the crown, the king's affection, an heir, and almost immediately lost her life. Her story ended at the very moment it seemed she had won completely. Silence returned to the palace. But now it sounded different. Jane Seymour did not rule for long. Her reign lasted only 17 months, but it was she who forever changed the idea of what a Queen of England could be. She did not rule, did not openly intrigue, did not fight for influence. She chose another path, the path of silence. Everyone knew her motto. Only now did its meaning become clear. Not weakness, but the smartest move at a court where strong women lost their heads. Literally. Jane understood Henry VIII better than anyone before her. She saw that the king was tired of resistance, of struggle, and she gave him what he desired most of all: the feeling of absolute power and peace. But that path had a price. Henry outlived her. He married again, and again. But he never called any later wife his true one, and none would be buried beside him. So who was Jane Seymour? History gave her a name, the Quiet Queen. But think about it. Anne Boleyn fought and lost her life. Jane Seymour remained silent and lost her life too. Maybe at the court of Henry VIII, survival was never an option. Write in the comments. Was Jane a victim, a strategist, or something else? A woman who simply wanted to survive? The next story is about a woman who outlived 4 kings and died in her own bed. Catherine Parr, the only one who walked away alive. Subscribe. Do not miss it.